Hello again. So I hope that we've inspired you to be part of this journey today, and to hopefully to apply to take part in the next phase of the Industrial Energy Efficiency Accelerator. We're going to in this session we're going to run through what you would need to do to take part. But I think I'll just start with some observations from working with some of the projects, and going through the whole process of applications and then running the projects, just to give you some pointers in terms of the design of any projects you might be considering, and writing your application if you want to take part. So, firstly, um, almost inevitably, projects take longer than you think. So, it's always more likely that contingency will be used or even exceeded rather than not used. So make sure that you do have contingency in your project, um, as you're putting project plans together, and thinking about how you'll fit within a up to 2-year timescale. Second lesson, I suppose, is that about clarity of roles and responsibilities, and I guess our most successful projects have been the ones that have, or the smoothest running ones at least, have been the ones that have worked really well together as a team between the technology developer and the industrial partner and other players as well, and being really clear on all understanding what you're trying to get out of the project at the end and what your different roles in the project are. Within that, the industrial partner is a really critical element in the project. So often it's the technology developer that applies for IEA, but really it works best when the industrial partner is a core part of the project all the way through, coming to the project update sessions, for example, and not just right at the end of the project. Now we've got the technology fully developed and we're going to install it. I think that can sort of lead to more difficulties and more likelihood that it isn't quite what is expected at the end of the project, particularly if people change during the project. Um, the greatest challenge, there's lots of challenges. These are innovation projects. They're difficult. They've had lots of challenges during with the technical progress, with the supply chains, sort of internal areas. But I think probably the biggest challenge is usually the integration of the technology when it's sort of fully developed actually into the process. Um, and so really having a think about how you're going to make that happen successfully is important at the start. Risk management, I think, is key to any project, um, and really, there's a temptation, I think, within an application process to churn out a fairly generalized risk management matrix and then worry about that later on. But if you can really think about the risks and what the real risks are and what the actual mitigations are, so what you will actually do to overcome them at the start, then that's um, good for success as well. And also key is the measuring and verification of project data. So we ask all projects up front to provide an M&V plan. It's a really important part of the project. In the past, there have been programs and projects in the distant past, at least, where you sort of get to the end of the project and then turns out a critical part of the data has not been measured to really understand what the savings are. So we're quite hot on that at the start of the project. And then also just sort of at the end here, thinking what others want to see. So what ultimately this is all about replication of these projects in wider industry. That's the whole point of doing the demonstration. So and you know, we're interested in the energy and carbon savings. There are usually other benefits to these projects, and understanding at the front what you need to going to be demonstrating at the end, I think, is really valuable. Um, Another way of encouraging you to take part, I just want to sort of talk through what's in it for the participants. Um, um, so clearly, the biggest benefit is the funding. Excuse me. This de-risks the project for the industry partner. For the technology developer, it makes the investment go further, and you know, that's often the main reason people get involved in the first place. But actually, I think there's a whole host of other benefits that companies get from taking part in the program. Um, for the technology developer in particular, this is a real opportunity to actually show on site the technology working, and that might be, that's through the case study and photos and videos. In some cases, the host company might allow visitors to come and visit it, and that that's just a whole different ball game to here's a technology we've developed on our own in our own back garage. Um, we talked yesterday about the benefits of project management and marketing support and commercialization support to the companies. Um, and I think that's really important, that it's not just about getting to the end and the technology works, but we're really trying to help the companies uh, through their commercialization journey as well. And certainly a number of them have sort of said how much they value that extra support that comes with the program. And I'll just highlight again the monitoring and verification that is really important part of proving the results, and the challenge, to be honest, that we give on that at the start and during the project, I think means that the results really mean more at the end. Um, then there's the promotion of the results. Being involved means that you get to have a case study with the BEIS logo on it, and appear at events like today to tell the world about your innovation. So I think that's exposure that's quite hard to get for some of these companies. And in terms of the industry partner, clearly this is de-risking new technology, which is always, there's always there's often some reluctance to put a new technology live into production environment. But I'd just like to reiterate the first mover advantage that I think the companies have got from being part of this program. Um, I know that often industrials will want to see technology proven. We talked about that on the panel discussion earlier, before they then go ahead and see it proven elsewhere, before they go ahead and invest in it in their own site. But I think the companies that have taken part in this have really had a benefit in going through that journey, that learning curve, with the companies, with the technology developers, so that they come out at the end of it in a much stronger position to then know what any further trialing work that needs to be done, and what the business case is likely to be, and be in a position to roll it out within their companies quickly, that you wouldn't necessarily have if you've just seen it as a case study in another company. So that's why to take part. So if that's convinced you, then here's what you have to do. So firstly, the some key dates for the diary. The current phase of the IEA was announced in August and opened for applications in October. There are still 2 months left, so that sounds like plenty of time. But actually, pulling together one of these projects, all of I've just talked about just now, does take time. Filling in the application form and understanding all the guidance notes takes time. So really, I would say time is quite short, and really encourage you, if you are interested, to get in touch and make a start on the application process now. The first step is to fill in the idea submission form, which is on the IEEA website. We've had a good number of ideas submitted already, and those that are sort of potentially eligible, we're helping support with progressing to a full application. And the phase 3 application window finishes on the 31st of January 2021. And meanwhile, during that time, we're running support clinics. So the next one is on the 15th of December. You can get in touch with us using Contact Us on the website if you'd like to book a slot. And there you'll be able to talk to either the technical experts about what your idea is and how you might make it work and whether it's eligible, or indeed or more on the admin side, on the sort of terms and conditions and the sort of how much grant funding you can achieve. I will highlight that there's a phase 4 planned for May next year. We do recognise that putting together these projects can take time and doesn't always fit within investment cycles. So I think it's good to have that visibility that there's another phase coming, and do encourage you to if you've got project ideas that are going to take longer to work up, to to be thinking about that application window now. But I would also encourage you. The funding pot is limited at £8 million. That might fund maybe sort of 15 projects. So potentially, if you it could all go in the first phase. The competition might be hotter in the second phase. It was last time, and so I'd encourage you to go for the first phase 3 if you are able to. So in terms of eligible projects and what sort of projects are eligible, some of you may have been to one of our original webinars or our launch event, but I'm just going to summarize again the types of projects that can take part in the program. Fundamentally, we're looking for projects that lead to a reduction in carbon emissions through either reduced energy use and or reduced through resource efficiency, reduced use of resources or reduced waste. The technology needs to be novel, or you can also apply with projects that are taking existing technology but using it in a novel way, where there's some sort of significant barrier to uptake, maybe in different sectors, or in different in the UK, where there's a particular reason it hasn't been done here before. This is about process energy and resource efficiency. So we're looking for that efficiency in the production stage, not, for example, in the distribution or use phase of a product. And we're looking for projects that have got a good scale up and commercial replication potential. So this isn't just about doing it on one site. We want it to demonstrating on one site with a view to it being rolled out across multiple sites, ideally in multiple sectors as well, but it can be within one sector. What we find is that successful to be the sort of success factors for a key project are the strong savings potential, scalable, as I've mentioned, with good commercial potential, because that will keep it going. Obviously looking for good value for money for the taxpayer who's funding this. And then in terms of the sort of stage of development, and I'm aware from the discussion earlier that there are lots of different schemes and they all tend to target different levels of different types of technologies at different stages of development. But for this program, we're looking at TRL levels of the technology between 5 and 8, and then progressing those upwards to TRLs of 8 or 9 through the program. If you've got more sort of established technologies, then there are other programs like the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund, which is also open at the moment through BEIS, which you can get in touch with. And there are plenty of programs as well supporting sort of earlier stage R&D. So just a little bit more of a breakdown then of those eligible projects. So firstly, in terms of energy saving projects, fundamentally that's about actually reducing the number of kilowatt hours on site. So it's not just simple fuel switching. It's about process savings. So it's not building fabric and HVAC type projects, and not about on-site renewable installation. So obviously they reduce carbon as well, but actually we're looking to reduce the kilowatt hours of the processes on site, or potentially the kilowatt hours of the processes upstream that are avoided by your processes on site. The next area here is water and waste savings. So this could be reduced use of water on site, which obviously has a carbon benefit, reduction in the amount of waste produced and needing to be processed, or reuse on site of the water or waste, which is all, again, showing some carbon benefit and hopefully some cross-sectoral applicability. But we're not looking here at sort of reduced transportation. That can be an additional benefit to a project, but the core benefit needs to be about on-site waste or water reduction. And then material intensity is an extension of that in the resource efficiency area. So that might be about using less raw materials, which obviously saves the processing of those upstream, or could be about using lower carbon alternative raw materials or enhancing circular economy through material recycling or reuse. And if you were, and the ideal project there might be that you actually involve the upstream partner in your project. And then finally on this slide, I've mentioned digital projects. So digital have always been part of the existing IEA, but we're looking to encourage these in particular. So this could be enhanced controls and process learning type technologies, including artificial intelligence elements, where they are reducing the energy or waste or raw materials on site. And we heard about the PITA digital twin project earlier, so that was a great example. We need to actually see the project leading to implementation of changes within the process. So, and it's not just about purely data analysis. And I've mentioned some of these, but just a list here of some of the projects that the technology areas that aren't in scope for this program, but many of them are supported in other areas. So that includes building improvements. So we're about the process. On-grid generation or storage technologies, potentially storage technology. So we heard about Prisma earlier, where there's a storage which is reducing the energy use on site. So that can be in scope. But if it's just about storage for on-grid supply, then that's not in scope. On-site renewables, so solar panels and wind turbines are not in scope. Carbon capture and use, carbon capture and storage or use technologies where the carbon capture element of it is the primary benefit are not in scope, but they could potentially have energy saving benefits as well, as we heard from the CCM project yesterday. Production of fuels, so production of fossil fuels or production of hydrogen isn't in scope. There's a number of other schemes that are supporting particularly production of hydrogen and biogas and use of those. And then finally, transportation, so energy efficiency and decarbonisation in transport is also covered elsewhere. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Johnny Close, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the actual process of going through the application for IEEA Phase 3.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Paul. Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Paul mentioned, my name is Jonathan Clues. I'm the competition manager for Phase 3 of the IEA. It's personal note, it's been great for me to hear more about the projects that we've supported to date. And I know we've certainly got a lot to live up to for the next phases of the IEA. So now that you're hopefully inspired to take part, but also know what sorts of projects we're looking to support, I wanted to spend some time just walking you through the application process for Phase 3 and some of the key advice for applying. But we also understand that applying for programs such as the IEA can be really difficult for some, whether it's a lack of experience applying to these types of programs, uncertainty about some of the key eligibility criteria, or some other reason. So I also wanted to spend a bit of time just telling you about some of the support available to companies throughout the application process. So on this side, you'll sort of see at a high level what the application process looks like for the IEA. First step for any potential applicant, as Paul mentioned, is to visit the IEA website where you'll be able to submit a project idea. This form is really quick and simple and easy to fill in. It just asks for a brief overview of your technology, your proposed project, and the benefits and savings of that. Our technical team can then review that idea for eligibility and suitability for the IEA before you move on to make your full application, which should potentially hopefully save some of you some time, but also allow us to understand who's interested in the types of projects that we've got coming through the pipeline. The next phase after that is to start drafting your full application. During this step, you'll be able to access a range of application support offered by the program, which I'll come on to in more detail shortly. And beyond that, once you're happy with your application, it's time to submit it along with other supporting documentation, including the finance workbook. And you may be invited to an interview with someone from the IEA team to clarify any particular parts of your project that are unclear for your application. Finally, the assessment panel will convene to review all of the applications. This will be done against a standard scoring criteria to allow us to ensure that the process is completely fair and balanced across all of the applicants. And from that, we'll be able to select the funding recipients. Applicants will then be informed of that decision, and you will also be provided with feedback on your particular idea. So on the next slide, I just wanted to highlight to you some of the specific documents which are there to help you apply. You'll find all of these key documents on the IEA website, along with a few other additional ones that are there to support your application. Firstly, the guidance note. We prepared this to make sure the application process is as clear as possible and to really help companies prepare the best application they possibly can. It includes information on the application process itself, eligibility, finance and funding rules. Please do read this carefully as it is a very important document and contains a lot of really crucial information. The next key document is the application form. Final applications will be made via the Smart Survey form, which you can access through the IEA website. This allows you to save your application and come back to it and keep updating it at any time throughout. But we also understand that many of you will be working in consortiums, and so wanting to collaborate and work together on your applications. So we've therefore also prepared a Word version of the application form, which exactly mirrors the online version. So you can share that around and work together on your full application using that as well before you finally submit via the online form. Please do note, however, that the final application has to be made via that online form and the Word version won't be accepted. Lastly, the finance form. You'll need to upload this as part of the online application form, and there's detailed advice for completing this that can be found in the guidance note. So as Paul mentioned, the deadline for applications for Phase 3 is 3 p.m. on the 31st of January 2022. Late submissions will not be accepted, so please don't leave it to the last minute to apply. So now, just a few elements from the guidance note that we think it's probably worth you knowing when you're making your application. So applications opened on the 14th of October, and as just mentioned, they shut on the 31st of January next year. Successful applicants will be notified in March 2022, and projects must commence no later than the 31st of May, with a maximum delivery period of 2 years. The total budgets for Phase 3 and 4 is £8 million. As Paul mentioned, please note if we receive enough sufficiently strong applications in Phase 3, then the full budget may be allocated during that phase and not be available during Phase 4. So if you can, we do encourage you to get your applications in for Phase 3. We expect grants to be awarded in the range of £150,000 up to £1 million. There is a small scope for projects to receive more or less than this amount, but only in exceptional circumstances. As previously mentioned, there's a range of information available online, which we encourage you to look at to help you make your application decision and plan out your project. And once again, it's highly valuable to submit an idea prior to your full application so that we can help you evaluate eligibility. This will also help us ensure that you can access the full range of application support activities on offer, which I'll get to in just a second. So now on the next slide, onto the important topic of money. As mentioned, you'll need to complete a finance form, which captures the information on your project expenditure, eligible costs, grant amount, and spend profile for your project. Please do check which costs are ineligible and also the subsidy rules. Guidance on both can be found in the guidance note itself. In the table on the right, you can see the funding intensities available. These are determined by company size and type of activity. Please also note that you will be asked to explain how your project will be funded in addition to the grant requested. So that's the match funding required. If you're successful in your application, as part of the due diligence process before signing the final contracts to kick off your project, we will request to see your financial accounts to make sure everything is in order. And then finally, in the other table on this slide, in the bottom right, you can see the scoring weighting for each part of your application. Please do note from this how important all aspects of the project are when completing your application. So it's do spend equal time and commitment to each of those sections to ensure you've got your application has the best possible chance for success. Now, onto the support that's offered during the application process. As you will have heard over the last 2 days, please do sign up to the IEA networking platform on Meeting Mojo, where you can communicate with potential partners in the IEA team. The platform will remain open for phase 3 and 4, and we will be monitoring that and taking part as part of that platform to see where we can support and to keep track of the ideas and networking that's taking place. Next, and I hope this makes you realize how important we feel this point is, I want to stress again that you can submit an idea in advance of your full application via the IEA website, and that will allow us to ensure that your project is, or to check your project for eligibility. And then we also have application clinics, the first of which we held last week, I believe it was. And during these, you can book time to talk to members of the IEA team about your idea, your project, the application, the process itself, any numerous points. We've got 2 more of these available, one in December and one in January, and you can sign up via the IEA website, and we'll get in touch with you to arrange a time and to also make sure that we can get the most suitable person from the team available to talk to you. In addition to that, the IEA team is able to discuss applications and provide support one-on-one with potential applications. Another great reason to make sure you submit an idea so that we know you're interested and we can reach out to you about that. We're also able to provide one full review of your draft application if you submit it to us via the Word document prior to the 7th of January. Please note, all of these support activities are for guidance and direction only. We can't give a definitive view on eligibility, nor can we say how the assessors will end up scoring your application, but the support is still there, and hopefully it is still very valuable to you as you're going through this process. Finally, we're also able to support on matchmaking. If you're struggling to find a partner, please get in touch with the team and we can see if we can put you in touch with any suitable industrial partners or technology providers. So just quickly on this final slide, to summarize, here is your application checklist. This has information on all parts of the application form you need to upload to complete your application in full. All of these documents are available as part of the application form, and you can easily upload them prior to your submission. Please don't forget any bits of it. Please revisit this slide just to double check that you've uploaded all elements. If in doubt on any part of your application, please contact the IEA team. We're absolutely here to help, and we'd love to hear from you. And so with that, I'll hand over to Paul to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Yes, coming towards the end now. So just to sort of reiterate that if exactly what you just heard, if you're interested in taking part, then please do register your interest on the IEA website and or submit a project idea. You know, have a go away after this and have a think about what projects that you've been thinking about that could qualify. Do you have relationships as industry with technology developers that you could explore further to see whether they might be appropriate? As we said, there's lots of support available to help you through the application process. Obviously, you need to make sure that you have the match funding in place to support any project, but some of the you know, the funding intensities that are available, especially for the smaller technology companies, are actually quite substantial in terms of the percentage funding that you could achieve. And as we said lots of times, there's more information on the website, so you can get in touch with us with a chat, and the website address there is at the bottom, which is www.carbontrust.com/IEEA. On that site, you can also see the more information about the previous projects from the last 2 years. So if you want to know more about the projects, the case studies we've already heard about, and then there's more information there on those as well. And so I'll move on to wrap up. I think to finish off, if I were to pick out the word that I've heard most often over the last 2 mornings, particularly through the sort of panel discussions, it's been collaboration. Collaboration between the technology developers and industry, collaboration within industry sectors, maybe facilitated by trade bodies, to share learnings and to collaborate together on the development of new technologies. Collaboration between companies and their value chains, to reduce the look into scope 3 emissions and reducing carbon emissions right through the value chain. So I think that's a sort of key element to just think about, and we've heard about collaboration within clusters as well. So obviously industrial companies often are thinking about like competitive edge and how we keep ahead of our competitors, but there's just the sheer scale of the challenge for net zero means that this is going to be more successful if companies work together on it. I think the other thing that really struck me today on the sort of same note was in a Lens talk where he showed the need for what companies need to do if they want to be on that trajectory, the 1.5-degree global warming trajectory, that needs a savings for an individual company reducing emissions of about over 4% each year, which just you sort of think back in your own company, what's the trajectory been of carbon savings over the last years, or even maybe if you've been a growing company, maybe they haven't been declining at all, and and just think that business as usual is not going to lead to that level of savings, and so I suppose that leads me to my final point, which is that came up in the industry panel today. Almost all the panelists said when they were asked, well, what's the advice to industry? It was about starting now, even if it's only small steps, even if you're not straight on that sharp downward trajectory, and by starting now you can get going and be open to exploring sort of innovative ideas and taking some risk and not being too risk averse, because there will need to be risk taken during that process. So I think that's everything from the two-day event. I'd just like to close by thanking all of my colleagues that you've heard from, all of the excellent speakers that we've had over the last 2 mornings, the panelists in particular, for sharing their sort of really interesting viewpoints on what we can all do. And of course, a big thank you to all the IEEA participants for their tireless work over the last 2 or 3 years on the projects, with the challenges they've had to overcome, and for coming to this event to bring to life to their technologies, and they're looking forward to replicating those more widely through industry. The event's been recorded, so we'll be making available the recording and all the resources that have been on the screen after the event, and we'll let you know when they're available. Obviously, you can then share the recordings with any colleagues who weren't able to make it, who think would be interested. And of course, I won't finish without one final plug for you to get in touch if you've any interest in taking part in the next phase of the IEA, and you can register your interest at the website, which I mentioned, carbontrust.com/IEA. So thank you very much to everyone for joining this event, and goodbye.